I've spent a lot of time snorkeling in this lake, and I've made friends with a lot of fish along the way. But there's one species that gets me really excited every time I see it. Unfortunately, these fish are stealthy and they're shy, so they're not easy to find, but I go looking for them every time I snorkel in this lake. Now, some of the other fish that live in these waters are not so secretive or shy, like my friend the largemouth bass. In fact, there are several bass in this lake that are so accustomed to my presence that they swim right up to me and show very little fear. But I'm not interested in the bass right now. The fish I'm after is the chain pickerel, and they're not friendly at all. They also have a mouthful of razor-sharp teeth, and they're incredibly fast. But I'm not worried about the pickerel biting me. I'm more concerned with the leeches that I might pick up along the way as I follow this pickerel through the shallows and into the weeds, where the leeches tend to hang out, waiting for their next victim. I've been bitten by several leeches over the years, and I don't usually find them until I get out of the water, and by that time they've been on me for an hour or more. And the spot where the leech bit me usually itches for several days afterwards. So it's not a very pleasant experience, but getting good footage of these pickerel is well worth the pain and the loss of blood. By the way, these things that look like clouds are collections of dead, free-floating filamentous algae called metaphyton. And when the metaphyton are alive, they look like green cotton candy. And it's not uncommon to find these metaphyton clouds in the shallow waters near shore. Also, coming up on your right-hand side, you're about to see an eastern newt just before it dives down for cover. So, when the video starts again, keep your eyes on the newt. I was hoping to get some good footage of that pickerel, but he won't let me anywhere near him. While my friend the largemouth bass swims right up to me, looks me in the eyes, and wonders why I'm interested in such an ugly fish in the first place. Now I wonder how many of you can spot the chain pickerel in this scene before it gives itself away by moving. This little bluegill, on the other hand, makes its presence pretty obvious, while the pickerel does not, because they rely on stealth to catch their prey, which consists mostly of other fish. Now I'm going to try and get a bit closer, and that's when the pickerel reveals its location. I'm now going to try following it and get as close as I can. But my friend the largemouth bass has other ideas. It's a whole other world down here, and you never know what you'll find. But the only thing I'm looking for right now are pickerel. But they certainly don't make it easy for me because they're shy and they're masters of camouflage. Here's a baby largemouth bass and a small group of baby sunfish. They're either bluegills or pumpkin seed. I'm not sure. It's really hard to tell them apart when they're this small. The plants you see here along the bottom are a combination of carnivorous bladderworts as well as a couple different species of narrow-leaved pondweeds. Okay, I've spotted another pickerel just up ahead. Let's see if you can find it before it moves. They're such shy fish. And here again I've found another chain pickerel, and it's perfectly camouflaged, just waiting to grab any small fish that happens to get too close. Pickerel and their larger relative, the northern pike, all rely on their speed and the element of surprise to catch their unsuspecting prey. So they're very good at hiding in plain sight. This pickerel is probably hunting for baby fish in these plants along the bottom of the lake. And as I follow it, be sure to notice all of the baby fish that pop up along the way. There are lots of baby sunfish here, as well as baby largemouth bass. The baby fish use these plants for cover and for hunting, but then again, so does the chain pickerel. There's a lot of bladderwort along the bottom here. These carnivorous plants have tiny bladders that trap microorganisms inside, where they're then digested by the plant. This pickerel is being incredibly tolerant of me right now because they don't usually let me get this close or hang around them for this long. And now it's time for a short commercial break, but please don't go away. There's still a lot more to see and learn as I continue snorkeling through this beautiful lake in search of these shy fish. All right, thanks for sticking around to see what happens next. Finding and following pickerel means that I have to go into these shallow areas where there's lots of aquatic plants, and I always try to avoid damaging these important areas by going around them if I can. And it's not just the plants that I have to be mindful of. Sometimes it's a male bluegill guarding a nest site as it's getting ready to spawn. I was following a nice-sized pickerel, but this beautiful fish made me stop and take notice as he made it very clear that this area at the bottom of the lake belongs to him, and I should probably back off. These large males are very protective of their spawning areas, and they're not afraid to confront intruders that are many times their size. And now I think it's time to leave this male bluegill and go in search of more pickerel. But finding and following them is always a challenge as they tend to disappear in the dense vegetation near shore. I try to keep up with them as best as I can, but there's only so far that I can go. However, the body of the pickerel is long and thin, which is perfect for navigating through the dense cover of aquatic plants in the shallow waters near shore. So these snake-like fish can easily go just about anywhere they want. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for me. Nonetheless, one of the keys to filming these fish in the wild is that once I start moving, I have to keep moving forward, because if I circle back to where I was before, I'll end up swimming into a cloud of debris that I left in my wake. So I have to keep moving forward and I have to tread lightly. But I also have to follow the pickerel wherever it goes, so sometimes I end up swimming in circles. And that's when I swim into this aquatic snowstorm. This little pickerel has an injury to the left side of its mouth, most likely due to a sharp hook and a tight line. Now I'm going to show you a fish that I like to think of as an old friend, and I was very reluctant to include it in the video because this part of the story always makes me feel a little sad. But it's one of life's bitter realities here in the lake, and there's no sense hiding from the truth. Several of the largemouth bass in this lake have come to accept me as a peaceful visitor to their world, so this bass has very little fear of me. Unfortunately, it also has a very serious injury to its upper jaw, and it won't survive for very long. And now my old friend the bass looks me in the eye as if to ask for help. And I know there's very little that I can do because an injury like this won't ever be able to heal. I have a few ideas what could have caused this, and they all involve a fisherman, but it doesn't really matter now. I just really feel bad for this fish. It must have been one hell of a struggle to cause so much damage, but all I can do now is wish him well and keep moving forward in search of more pickerel. There's one hiding just up ahead, and as we get closer to this fish, you'll notice a white mark just in front of its right eye. That's an injury as well, most likely caused by a battle with a fisherman. And that wound is very obvious, so it probably affects the fish's ability to use its camouflage to hide and catch food. And there's a second pickerel here as well. My friend the largemouth bass is still following me as if looking for help. And now I feel bad for ignoring the bass so that I can keep filming this pickerel. But what else can I do? I could try feeding it worms. However, that wouldn't fix the problem, but it might help ease my guilt. Now, setting my feelings aside, I continue focusing my efforts on the pickerel, knowing that chances like this are rare because these fish are so timid. However, they're not shy at all when it comes to striking your lure and fighting like there's no tomorrow. But when you're actually in the water with them, it becomes a completely different story. All of a sudden, they become these super shy fish that don't let you anywhere near them. And that's why anytime I get the chance to capture these fish on film, I take it and I try to get as close as I can, which is always a challenge. But that's part of what makes this so fun, because every now and then I get that perfect shot that makes it all worthwhile. So I come back to this lake year after year in search of these amazing fish and for the rush of excitement that I feel every time I see one. But they're so secretive and shy that I really have to pay attention just to find them. They typically grow to a maximum length of about 2 feet, but the largest one ever caught was 31 inches long. They're known for putting up a really good fight when caught on a rod and reel, and with a mouthful of sharp teeth, they're often able to cut the line and free themselves before you can bring them in. And even if you do land these fish, they're very slippery and have a long, thin body that makes them especially hard to handle. And that's not a good thing when the fish has a mouthful of razor-sharp teeth and you have to take the hook out with your hand. The pickerel remind me of ghosts, just magically appearing out of nowhere and then vanishing without a trace before you ever get a really good look. Okay, now let's follow this chain pickerel for a while and see where it leads us. You never know what you'll find. There's lots of baby fish all along the surface here. I can still see the pickerel in the distance, so I'm going to try and get a little closer. Apparently that's too close for this pickerel, and it's on the move again. That shiny object in the distance is a relatively common species called a luminous discardius, but it's most often referred to as a soda can. It's an exotic species that really doesn't belong in this lake, and it was probably introduced by an inconsiderate fisherman or even released by a careless fish keeper. I love how the sun and the ripples on the surface of the water causes the light to move along these plant stems, creating a weird effect. And by the way, most of these plant stems are from a plant with floating leaves called water shield. There's another largemouth bass, and the pickerel that I've been following is on the move again across the bottom of the lake. And now, judging by the suspended particles in the water, it looks as if this fish has led me to a section of the lake where I was before. So maybe we've gone in a circle, but I'm not sure, because I've been focused on not losing sight of this fish as it swims from one part of the lake to another. Nonetheless, I've been following this pickerel for several minutes now, and the best part of our journey is still ahead. I love the fact that I never know what I'll find around the next corner, so each time I snorkel in this lake, it's a whole new adventure. Now, I'm not sure if this fish has a plan, but I'm fairly certain that he wishes I'd leave him alone. But that's not going to happen anytime soon, because I've developed an obsession with this underwater world. So I'll keep returning to this beautiful lake for as long as I can, in search of things that I could never see from the land. And now it's time for us to leave the lake. I really appreciate you staying with me until the end and for joining me in search of the chain pickerel. Thanks for watching, and I really hope that you have a beautiful day.